Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to the Three Churches VideoCast, where we talk to three different churches of three different sizes and three different settings and how they are dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. This week we talk about Easter and how it went for our three churches, as well as taking some time to talk about soul care. As we enter this next season without an end really in sight or an end known of when we'll be able to meet together, it's really important for each of our pastors and leaders to take care of themselves, to stay connected to Jesus as they lead their congregations. So the pastors this week are going to share their plans for their soul care and would love for you to be thinking about this for yourself as well. Here we go. All right, well, welcome back. Post-Easter edition of the Three Churches VideoCast. We've got Nate and Greg, and we're going to jump right into it with our biggest win. This week, we are talking about our topic being 1990s movies about social isolation. That is our topic. Biggest win for 1990s movies about social isolation is, of course, Home Alone. Kevin McAllister came out in 1990, and 9-year-old me went and saw this in the theater and thought it was the best thing ever. It was so packed. We had to sit in the front row. I didn't care. My neck was sore for a week. It was great. I introduced my kids to Home Alone this year. It totally holds up. It's all good. It's the biggest win for 1990s movies about social isolation. Nate Sickler, what is your Home Alone moment this week at Riverside Church?
As much as we continue to see more people engage online, it still feels a little like you're home alone.
Yes, so, exactly.
Yeah, we saw some big wins when it comes to just online engagement as a whole. We've used a combination of live and pre-recorded materials for the last couple of weeks, seeing really good success with that. This week, because of just some of the moving parts that are involved in doing both of those things at the same time, chose to do just a pre-recorded service. We had a couple of elements we exchanged out for our Friday and Saturday services for our Sunday, so that Sunday we could just say Easter.
Sure.
But we were like, how's this going to go? Is it going to feel like this is a present moment thing? It did. It really did. We got a lot of good feedback from people that it felt like this was this weekend, and this was all right here, right now, for the most part. So really good that way. Everything worked. We didn't have a giant like tech fail where one of our main computers crashed like it did the first couple of weeks we were into this. So that was huge. But really good engagement. We ended up seeing a bunch of people say yes to Jesus. So that was really cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is
76.
76 people. That is so great. Even in the midst of this weird time, there were 76 people who said yes to Jesus, who were lost and now found. They were dead and they're now alive. And God is still moving. And my hope is from all of our stories is some of this is we get to hear in the midst of all of the stuff, we get to hear some of that. So Nate, awesome report. Biggest win. That's great. Nate Yoder, biggest win for you.
Yeah, so the Easter videos that I put together where I asked all of our church family to just record like a 10-second clip from their family in their house saying, hey, Jesus is alive. We're the, so-and-sos or whatever it is. And then I incorporated two folks from around the district. And Kyle, you participated in that. Thank you for that. That was just awesome. The people loved it. It was a great surprise to them to be able to see all the people from around the district and the nation and even our international workers from around the world to be on that. And then to hear all of that resounding kind of just proclaim Jesus is alive from all of their church family and everyone that we're supporting and people we're connected with all over the place. It was great. And people gave so many comments about how that was meaningful to them and how that just made Easter super special, even in this kind of time. And so that was our biggest win. And full disclosure, a little confession here. For me personally, that was really meaningful too. And so we're going to be heading out to Berlin this summer, as long as things hold true with the timeline and this COVID stuff. And so this will give me and my family, the Yoders, a chance to have a video by which to see all the people and relationships, maybe not all of them, I guess, but as many as we can, many of the cool relationships that we've had here in our time in Watertown. It's been great.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're super excited for you and your next step with the Alliance, becoming one of our international workers, and so fun to celebrate an Easter even in these weird circumstances with that video. So it was really great. Awesome. Greg, biggest win. What was your Macaulay Culkin moment?
Well, hands down was our Easter mystery egg bags. I talked about these last week, and they're essentially bags filled with eggs. A few of them had candy and kids' activities and things like this, but the heart of it was 9 eggs filled with little items representing different moments in the Easter story. And we had packed 400 of these and gave out about 75% of them the first night. We had 2 days of where people could come pick up, and we panicked, packed another 100 plus more, and they were a huge hit. Not just beforehand. I think we completely underestimated parents' desperation to keep their kids engaged and entertained, because people came out in droves. We had at one point, for about an hour straight on Friday, the first pickup, we had 8 cars deep lined up in front of the church there, picking up these bags for themselves, for their kids, for their nieces and nephews. And then during service, I told the Easter story, walking through and opening up egg by egg. And I'm blown away by the response I've gotten in the last few days about how much people, and not just parents with kids, but single adults and people living on their own. They loved that sense of, 1, interacting, 2, doing something, but 3, doing it all as a church. And that was one of the things we were going for with these guys. And so, yeah, it was a huge hit.
So my 4-year-old Elm especially was just like beside himself all weekend. After we picked up the bag on Friday night, Greg's my pastor, we go to River Life. It was like all he could talk about all weekend. Like, we did an Easter egg hunt on Saturday, but when are we opening the bags from church? And then he's like literally sitting there, and church started, and he was like, is it time to open the bags now? I'm like, no, we gotta wait for Pastor Greg to tell us when. It was like the highlight of the weekend, which was so fun to just see them, engage in the Easter story, and definitely really cool. So thanks, Greg. Thanks as a parent, and it was super meaningful, but also for a cool idea. All right, so I hope we didn't have any epic fails. I was thinking, maybe epic fail is the wrong thing, because it sounds like we're making an epic fail every week, but I want to normalize the fact that in this time, things don't go well. And there's one movie in the 1990s about social isolation that really didn't go well. It has a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's starring one Pauly Shore. It's the epic fail that is known as Biodome. Biodome is our epic fail moment for 90s social isolation movies. Nate Yoder, did you have any kind of Pauly Shore moments this week?
Yeah, so Easter is one of those times where people are a little bit more open to be able to engage with their friends and neighbors who don't normally go to church or don't have, a solid faith. They're far from God in some way or another. And so, I consider that time to be sacred in that way. That we like to invite people as many as we can. And so, I think our people were inviting, and they were, as much as they could, hey, click this link, share this, if they could. We here in South Dakota can gather in groups of 10 or less. And so some were doing that. And our clicks and our likes and our watches were up compared to what our in-person numbers were from, years past. But, they usually are up a little bit on Easter anyway. So, but the thing that really kind of, I feel like, was the failure was that I didn't have a great way to follow up with all those people that were visitors, so to speak. And so I didn't do that well on the front end. I could have put something on the end of our video, like a click through to connect kind of a thing, at least giving them the opportunity to connect if they wanted to, and to find out more about, hey, how do I engage deeper and more regularly with what's going on here? Because there's something special. And if we truly believe that, I need to make that happen. So I failed at that, and I'm going to work on that for the upcoming time.
Yeah, figuring out those next steps are difficult when we're in person, but even more difficult and probably more important now. So that's a good thing to start to think through. How do we engage people who might watch us on Facebook or YouTube or whatever to take a step in connection with relationship? Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Nate. That's great. Great epic fail. Epic fails are great because we learn from them. That's what's great about it. So, Greg, what about you?
So we had a little bit of a technical epic fail. So it looked as we were getting ready, I had my Facebook Live set to launch at 9:55, 5-minute countdown. Then we jump on and start talking live. And as it was getting closer, it appeared as if Facebook was pushing the start time further and further away. And so about 7 minutes before service, I started to panic. And I started scrambling around, checking the OBS settings, checking the Facebook settings, scrambling, and it hits our normal countdown time, no countdown. And what I didn't realize until after the fact was the recording actually had started. So what's normally this cool, graphic, colorful countdown for 5 or so minutes was me doing this. And I had no idea everybody was watching it. So I guess I could count myself very lucky that all people saw was this.
Yeah, a good thing you didn't swear in the middle of that, Greg.
Exactly. But I was really frazzled. So one, just the technical issue, but two, I was really frazzled starting at 10, and like my heart rate was up. I was a little frantic, and so it took me a minute or so to try to kind of calm myself down. But I've learned, you roll with it, and we were still able to start on time. And after a little while, I got back into it and shared and enjoyed it, and I had fun, so people had fun, and yeah. But that was the 5 minutes pre-service of just sheer panic was our epic fail.
Nice. I only caught about 30 seconds of it, so you're
Nice.
going to watch you the whole time, so that's good.
Good.
Nate Sickler, what about for you guys? Oh, you're muted. That was it right there. If you didn't have one, you just had it.
If that was it, that's a good week.
That's a very good week.
It's a great week. There's two things that we continue to wrestle with as we live in this digital only thing. One is how do we track viewership for the sake of seeing trends and seeing if we're being effective, if more people are connecting in, or if all of a sudden we're tanking. And we use 2 platforms right now, and each one, there's a couple of different tools we can utilize to see what people are doing. But those tools, their data is a bit of a moving target. And so it's just a challenge to find something that can be a consistent benchmark on a week to week to see where things are going. And that continues to give us, we got to scratch our heads on that. Then the other thing is the same thing Nate Yoder's wrestling with, where he's saying, how do we connect the guest, the person that's not normally a part of our church family, in a time when we are not around each other? We don't see the new person, or we don't have a foyer where we can say, hey, if you're brand new and you'd love to learn about who we are, we'd love to meet you. Come see us there's not really that. So how do we're continuing to wrestle that through. If people give us information, like that's something that we can do, but how do we get that initial contact, that initial, hey, I'm Nate?
Yeah, it's one of these interesting moments where big church, small church, medium church, whatever setting, we're all wrestling through some of these same issues. One being, we can see how people are viewing it, but we can't actually see how it's being received. It could be on in the background and families are going nuts and it's not really helpful, or it could be a deeply meaningful time. And so all of these questions are almost to be determined as we continue out and reach out to people and just see how things are going. So thanks for sharing your epic fails. Now, as we move into post-Easter is an interesting time usually for churches and especially for pastors and leaders, where there's usually this like build up to Easter, and then it's kind of like, oh, I did all this effort, all this work, and now what? I think it's a normal thing, kind of a post-Easter blues. We've talked about it in our office a little bit, what that looks like. And this year especially, what I wanted to bring up, one quote from Walter Kim. He's the new NAE president, and he talked about our race is no longer a sprint, it's now a marathon. And so coming up to Easter, it kind of felt like a sprint. Let's get our online stuff figured out. Let's do this. And now it's like, oh, okay, we've got to run this race for the long haul. This isn't just Easter, next week we're open for business. We don't know. And so in the midst of that, there's going to be some things we talk about and work through. But the number one thing for you all, pastors and leaders, is how am I going to care for myself? How am I going to care for my own soul? How am I going to care for my family? And we kind of hit on this at the end of the last episode. So I thought that would be our big question this week, is what's your self-care plan for the next couple of weeks? And so Greg, we're going to start with you. What's your self/soul care plan to run this marathon well?
Well, we've got two things kind of in place, a short term and a long term. So the short term is this Sunday, we're doing kind of what we're calling a best of episode for church. And I made a highlight reel of our most watched sermon series we've ever done. And I took 5 sermons and edited down to a 15-minute highlight reel. We've repurposed a couple of videos of recordings that we've made of our worship team. And then I'm having my associate pastor do some of the new content, like our scripture reading, our corporate prayer. And then I'll probably still do kind of the live intro and live transitions. I'm still working on that. But my hope is that by the end of today, if not even mid today, this is Wednesday that we're recording this, I'm hoping to be done. And I'm going to take the rest of the week off, probably through Friday, and then Saturday jump back on and get the service together, just to have some time off, some time to relax, play, and do some stuff around the house, and continue watching the TV show Picard, which I started and I'm loving. So yeah, so that's the first. And then the second longer term thing is that the next series that we're doing, the next sermon series that we're doing, is going to be focused on mental health. Our first series during COVID we called it our spiritual survival guide, and that was kind of the how do we survive. But now, like Kyle, you've been talking, we're in this marathon now, and we don't know how long this will last. The only thing we know is it's not going to end soon, which means this is now when the mental health issues start to come. And so what's great about this is we have an incredibly large set of really skilled mental health professionals. And so for the next 4 weeks after this week, I'm not going to be preaching. It's going to be my wife, our associate pastor, his wife, all 3 of whom are mental health professionals. And they're going to be doing the teaching and finding videos and all of that. So I'll still do some of the additional content and live moderation and things like that. But that was very intentional on their part, to give me a much more relaxed few weeks ahead.
So Greg, I always knew your haircut was inspired by someone. I did not realize it was Jean-Luc Picard.
That is absolutely true. Our complete lack of hair.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Sounds like a great plan. Excited to see how that all plays out. So thanks, Greg. And Nate Sickler, what about you? What's your plan for soul care, self-care as you start this marathon?
Started on Monday. Monday's my day off, and I took it. So that was a good, important win. And not necessarily something I've been consistent at the last few weeks, because we've all been figuring this whole thing out. And it's easy to say, oh, I'll just work on this for an hour. It turns into 4, you know? Mm-hmm. But consistently taking my day off in the next season is a non-negotiable. So that's a big one. Then exercise every day. That's something that I've been okay at, but as we've been in crisis mode, that's slipped. And so getting back to that. is a big one too. And then calling a friend every day, someone that's not associated with the organization, with Riverside. Friends from college, friends from seminary, people that that maybe I haven't touched base with in a while, just to check on them and get a chance to just laugh together and pray together if we need to about whatever we're walking through, and yeah, just have some good touch points there.
I love it. Those are 3 super practical kind of next steps. Great. Thanks so much for sharing, Nate Sickler. Nate Yoder, what's self-care, soul care look like for you as you enter this post-Easter season?
Yeah. So thanks to my wife, I got a haircut, and all those things are closed, but she gave me a haircut, so that helps out. Makes me feel a little bit lighter, and so that's good. No, I've taken a half day off already, and I plan to take more off. Hopefully, the full day Friday off to do just some other stuff and be with family, and just have my mind completely off of what's going on here, and kind of take that break. I don't usually take Mondays off, and so usually towards the end of the week, I like to take a day off and just kind of breathe before going into the weekend. So that'll be good. And then I actually made some plans this morning to go help a friend on Saturday and do a little service with him. He's got a big project changing out his motor in his semi, and so go just turn some wrenches and just hang out and be guys for a little bit. And I'm not a mechanic, but I can turn a wrench here and there and move some stuff around for him, and we can just be together a little bit and have some fun, kind of like the call a friend thing. It'll be good to just unwind a little bit that way and some meaningful time together with him. And then also, like Nate, getting back into the exercise routine because of the time crunches and our gym being closed and the weather. It's been pretty lax. And so hopefully with the sun coming out now and temperatures coming up a little bit, I can get out and do a little bit more exercise.
I love it. I like how practical this is, the reaching out to people, the exercise. For me, I've started exercising every morning. Trying to do a run. I'm not much of a runner, but I've been doing a mile at least every other day, which is for me is a win. It's been interesting to see how doing a little bit of exercise at the start of the day, half hour, 45 minutes, helps me keep my mental health in a good spot as I'm working from home, isolated from other people. And so that's been the big self-care thing for me, as well as some prayer liturgy stuff that I've been doing. So think that's super important for us to stay connected to the Lord and to each other, and intentional about our bodies and our health. And so I love all of these suggestions. I would encourage anybody watching and listening to just think through how am I going to take care of myself during these days, because the health of the leader determines the health of what you guys are putting out and how your connections are. And so that's kind of why we're highlighting it this week. We can't do much of anything if we're not healthy ourselves. So last question we're going to hit is, what have you learned about yourself? So Nate Sickler, we're going to start with you.
Daily surrender is more important than I thought it was. I think that's what I continue to learn. And there's less that I can control than I thought I could. And I need to continually, daily say, Lord, I'm yours, fill me. And I need to walk in this with you. My patience isn't good enough, and I'm quick to get frustrated that I don't have my plans. And so daily surrender in a season like that, in any season, is essential, but in a season like this, it becomes evident when you're not. So yeah,
it's a good word. Nate Yoder, what you learn about yourself?
So I learned that it's okay not to have what my idea of a perfect end product is sometimes. On those Easter videos, I was definitely prepared for them not all to be perfect and high quality and everything else like that. In fact, I made mine a somewhat lower quality on purpose to kind of bridge the gap between where some people might be on their technical capabilities or the equipment that they have and things like that. But some of them came out even poorer than I expected and almost unusable. But I put them in anyway, and people just loved it. And no comments were made at all about quality. It was all about the connection and all about the people. And so learn to just, it doesn't always have to be my idea of perfect, and I can give myself a little more grace sometimes, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. Greg, what are you learning about yourself?
Well, this is something I knew about myself, but I was reminded pretty heavily of it this week, that I need to be more willing to ask for help, to reach out and ask for help. So the American individualism in me is pretty strong. And so our ministry team was really trying to honor the stay-at-home order. So last week, I was almost planning on filling all the eggs myself all throughout the week, because I really wanted to minimize the people. I didn't want to put it on others. But one of our guys encouraged me to put the word out for help, and the other team members came in, and it was amazing. Last week was so much easier than I had anticipated it was going to be. And it was great because, see, most of the rest of my team is Hmong, and they have a huge sense of communalism, of wanting to help one another to accomplish big tasks. And that's not wired into me. That's not how my family worked. And so they really came through for me to save me from just being drained all last week. And so I was reminded once again that I need to let go of some of that individualism and ask for help.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you guys for all your learning, all your sharing in your three churches, the ways you're leading. Loved seeing all your Easter services and what God is doing, and excited to see how this marathon unfolds. So we'll talk to you all soon, okay?
Thanks,
See you
Kyle.
later. Thanks, Scott. See ya.
Well, thanks again for joining us this week. We'd love to end our time with a prayer for those who are suffering and all of us who are dealing with this epidemic. Let's pray. Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who work or watch or weep these nights, and give your angels charge over those who sleep. Tend the sick, Lord Christ. Give rest to the weary. Bless the dying. Soothe the suffering. Pity the afflicted. Shield the joyous. And all for your love's sake. Amen. See you next week.